Thanks for joining us. My name is Josh. For those that you don't know me, I'm the Senior Vice President of Growth, Product Strategy, and Regulatory Relations, I think is the full title. And so this is our first time trying to host one of these AMAs on Twitter Spaces. Hopefully it works well. We've got a number of different folks from ECC that are here, and I'll be inviting them to speak here in a second. Basically, we're going to break this into two parts. The first part, I've got some questions loaded up and kind of in anticipation of what you guys might want to hear. And then subsequent to that, we will allow for some Q&A and give you an opportunity to ask questions directly. I want to note, though, the session is being recorded. We're not sure if we're going to do anything with it, but note that it is being recorded. So if you don't want to be recorded, just opt out, but hopefully you'll stay. So I'm going to jump right in. We have a whole bunch of things coming up later this year that we've been talking about with Network Upgrade 5, with Halo Arc. And Stephen, can you give us a status of all those things? What's the status of Network Upgrade 5? And what is the status of our work trying to get this deployed or trying to get support for this across the ecosystem?
Right, be glad to. Thanks, Josh. And by way of introduction, I'm the head of engineering at ECC and also do a little bit of product management as well. Regarding NU5, that's our next network upgrade, of course. Major components for that include Halo on Zcash, which we call Orchard, as well as unified addresses, which we're super excited about. We're currently in the final stages of development prior to testnet deployment. We've been working with a couple of audit partners, both during a specification phase and also implementation audit phase. One of our partners, Kedit, is wrapping up the implementation audit right now. So once we get their final feedback and incorporate that, any findings that they have, and incorporate that into a testnet release, we will have a support activated on testnet. We're targeting that for late August, which would then put our mainnet activation roughly mid to late November, if we allow for a three-month partner adoption period. Our plan on the partner adoption side of things is the first month after testnet activation, we'll be working internally and with partners to add library support to our wallet SDKs and Libra Zcash, which some people may be familiar with, but essentially the wallet stack to support the elements of NU5. We'll also be working in parallel with, I would call them node partners, exchanges, miners, etc., to roll out support for NU5 during that time also.
Cool. So just a quick refresher for everybody that doesn't know. So NU5 encompasses a few things. One, the most significant piece of it that will ship is the introduction of a new shielded pool called Orchard. This is the first implementation of Halo, which is generation zero knowledge cryptography that allows for us to allow for shielded Zcash without trusted setup. So a pretty major thing. And then we've got a set of other products that will ship with it. One is what we're calling Halo Arc. And that's kind of actually a grouping of projects or products. But one of the things is a reference wallet and SDK that will allow for things like shielded by default. So what shielded by default is it allows for, it includes something called a unified address. And a unified address allows you to send to an address, and the wallet will accept it, whether the intent is to send it to a Z address or a shielded address, a transparent address. And it will, a shielded by default will also auto shield those funds. So if you think about like an exchange, and today we have one exchange in the US, for example, that will allow you to send to a shielded address natively, but any exchange that will allow you to send to like a transparent address could send it to a unified address, and with shielded by default, it would automatically shield those funds for you. So we're pretty excited about that feature coming out this fall as well.
Hey, Josh, before we move on from shielded by default, DC here, I just wanted to draw people's attention to this realization that we've had, I think, over the past couple of years, that there was a big push for a long time within the Zcash community for Z to Z, or purely fully shielded transactions, and those are great. But what I've come to understand, what I think many other people in the community have come to understand, is that Zcash users get a significant amount of on-chain privacy when they transact Z to T. And so by storing funds in the shielded pool over time, and this is really what auto shielding makes happen by default, when you then transact to a counterparty that's using a T address, you still have very solid on-chain privacy.
Yep, that is a great point, DC. Thank you. So DC's are the COO at ECC if you haven't met him. I'm going to switch to just another topic real quick. So the community has been talking a lot about the possibility of something that we call ZSAs or Zcash shielded assets. And the idea with a ZSA is that it will allow you effectively to kind of wrap any asset or store any asset in a shielded pool. So let's say there's an issuer that wants to issue USDC or a stable coin, coin or something like that, and store it in the Zcash shielded pool. ZSAs would allow you to do that. So we've been thinking about different fee models, what that might look like, how that might work. And I'm going to invite Nate and Steven to share a little bit about what we've been exploring and how we're thinking about it.
All right, yeah, so we've been actually investing quite heavily during the summer with a project with George Mason University to model various economic mechanisms that might work well with Zcash shielded assets or ZSAs. The current status of that is George Mason and the research team has built kind of an existing model of Zcash, so we've got a base in which we can inject different mechanism designs into to kind of see how they look and see what are the areas we need to be concerned about with a particular, one design over another. That's progressing well. We're also vetting mechanism designs internally as well as with our scientific advisory group, the SAG, which we've gotten a lot of super valuable feedback from as well. So I don't know, Nate, if you had anything you wanted to add to that, or?
Well, yeah, I can talk a little bit about what I've been thinking about and looking into. So it would be different like potential mechanisms for fees, on-chain fees in the protocol around ZSAs in order to support sustainability of Zack, the asset. And related to that is sort of a broader question for the community about how we should think about setting any kinds of fees. And yeah, I think that's it. I think once we conclude the work with GMU, we'll be describing more possibilities and getting more discussion going on that.
Yeah, I would also add, there's a couple things. There's the kind of the cost model aspect of it, like, okay, how would a mechanism work? What fees would you charge at what juncture would you charge those fees? But then there's also the behavioral aspect of economics, like what behavior are you looking to incent with economics and the fee mechanisms, and particularly the behavior of ZSA holders to a degree, and then issuers, redeemers, et cetera. So it's kind of a combination of cost models as well as behavioral incentives, so that it's a net positive to Zcash economics overall.
I want to add something. Nate said sustainability of ZEC, the asset, and for that is that our mission is to provide economic and social freedom for everyone. And in order to accomplish that, we need long-term sustainable growth, because if we grow 10% a year or 100% a year, whatever it is, it's going to take many, many years to provide it to everyone. And the ZEC asset is the source of that long-term sustainable growth. So that's why that's critical.
Hey, Nate. Are you still up here?
Yeah.
Will I be able to
so.
shield my, will I be able to potentially shield my NFTs?
Yeah, okay, that's a great question because so far, like on the we think so primarily on fungible assets and sort of being like a story is what if you're
Sorry, Nate. That would be. Is Nate breaking up for anybody but me?
Yeah, I can't understand his words. I'm only getting every third word.
Sorry, that need some kind of fee mechanism also, and what does that look like? So, yeah, we go ahead.
Nate, we only caught like the last little bit of it because you were breaking up.
So, right, I think that great stuff will be digging into use cases more specifically. And currently at ECC, we've been focused on like issuers of begin reaching out to soon.
Right. I can add on there too as well a little bit. When people talk about ZSAs, I think folks have a little bit different perspective on what that actually means. And if you kind of look at a ZSA tooling stack, right, there's the low-level circuit changes to support additional assets, and then there's issuance and redemption consensus mechanisms that allow for the creation and the, let's just call it redeeming or burning, if you will, of these guest assets. And then there's a layer on top of that, which is the end user tooling. Like if I'm a Bitcoin holder, how do I actually go wrap my Bitcoin on Zcash? And that's the tooling aspect. But I think what Nate was also getting at right at the end was, what are the use cases? Like, what use cases do people have? As DC likes to say, what's the there? Like, obviously, when you wrap something, that thing that you wrap is private, but what are the use case drivers for why someone wants to do that beyond just parking an asset on Zcash and having it be private? We're super interested in that and working with tooling vendors to make sure that the consensus interfaces are well developed and meet their requirements as well.
Awesome, thanks. So I'm going to break just for a second, and I'm going to see if there's any questions that anybody has in the group that's here that may be listening about either NU5 or Shielded by Default or Halo or ZSAs. And if you do, maybe, I don't know how to do this, maybe flag me or flash a bat symbol somehow with your little heart icon. I want to see if there's any questions anybody wants to ask. All right, I don't see anybody, but our ECC, if you see anybody like raise their hand or flash something and they want to come up as a speaker, will you elevate them and then we can get them on to ask the question? Okay. I'm going to call another little audible and on Bo. So Sean, since you're up here up on the stage as a speaker, so Sean was the guy behind the discovery of Halo, and I mentioned a little bit about trusted setup and what that might mean. But Sean, can you maybe take us through some of the other implications or benefits of what Halo's going to bring, what it might bring?
Sure. So Halo didn't really come about because we were trying to remove the trusted setup originally. Originally, it was part of this sort of research push that we have at ECC, which is scalability. So we were trying to find ways to make Zcash more scalable. And in the process, we knew we'd have developing different cryptographic primitives and more efficient versions of existing cryptographic primitives and making discoveries and building. Okay, yeah. So what I was saying was that Halo actually came about not because we were trying to solve the trusted setup. We were actually pushing for scalability, and one of the things that we have to, one of the important tools of making Zcash scalable is something called proof carrying data, recursive proofs. And it comes in handy in many different contexts, but prior to the discovery of Halo, we didn't know of a way to do it really efficiently and without using a trusted setup. And it just so happens that the discovery of Halo meant we could avoid both really expensive proofs that make it very impractical or really slow, and then also we could avoid the trusted setup at the same time. So that was a real kind of like double whammy. So we're kind of pursuing bringing Halo in right now to Zcash as part of the Orchard protocol in NU5 as a way to introduce the cryptography into our protocol. But it's kind of a stepping stone toward using Halo as a way for as a way to improve the scalability of Zcash going forward. And so we want to do it kind of baby steps. And so we're pushing in multiple directions. And so for now, the biggest advantage of Orchard and the NU5 upgrade is going to be removal setup, which is something that's bugged us all for years, and also puts us on the path to improve scalability, and maybe even adding features like programmability and other really cool things to Zcash in the future.
Yeah, so it was a major, like Sean, correct me if I'm wrong, but it's a major breakthrough for zero knowledge cryptography.
Oh yeah, it kind of, so our company is fortunate to have been founded by some of the people who actually came up with the first practical realization of this cryptographic primitive I was talking about, proof carrying data. And 6 years went by, and there had been practically no advancement beyond what, this trusted setup, really expensive, pairing friendly, and weird cryptographic assumptions requirements for actually instantiating this primitive. And in one fell swoop, we were able to actually remove all of those really annoying downsides. And it's really nice that the ECC got to be involved in that breakthrough, which has been reverberating across all of cryptography. Even this week, there's a conference where there's multiple papers at a prestigious conference that are building new ideas on top of Halo. So it was very important and pivotal moment for our company, and also for zero knowledge cryptography.
Yeah, and I think Sean's actually being pretty modest about his own work, and there's a lot of help from Dara and Strad and folks on the team, but it was actually pretty amazing breakthrough for zero knowledge and being able to support scalability on L1 as well as kind of dealing with this trusted setup issue. So I'm gonna, unless there's questions, again, for folks that are joining, if you have questions and you want to be brought up, just flash an icon, a P symbol or a fist or something like that, and we'll get you promoted up and you can ask a question. So be watching for that, but just do that anytime. But I'm going to switch gears to proof of stake. And so proof of stake is something that we've been talking about for some time, and there's been hints at it for some time. But Zuko, you recently published a blog about proof of stake. And
yeah.
Like summarize for the folks here, like what were some of your thoughts, and that was a couple weeks back, in engaging with the community, has anything changed in terms of your thoughts? Take us through that a bit.
Okay, the blog, I'm going to load it up so I can read my own notes. The blog says, here's the reasons why switching to proof of stake would be good. Here's a bunch of good things about it. And the first one is, in proof of work, there's a constant sell pressure because miners who are receiving coins have to sell them to pay their operational costs. Whereas in proof of stake, the miners who are receiving coins can hold them and become long-term investors. So that makes a big difference. The second one is that the proof of work is associated with global warming, at least in most people's minds, and that's a huge battle and probably negative to be associated with that and to be involved in a giant argument. And the third one is, I'm happy to be involved in giant arguments. I honestly love being involved in giant arguments, but I don't think proof of work is better, so I don't want to waste my time arguing for it, because I think proof of stake is actually better because it's faster and safer and allows finality and gives people a way, like even small-time players, a way to participate in the Zcash consensus and get rewarded to do so, and so on. And it's more decentralized. So that's pretty much the summary of my blog post. And your second question was, what have I learned since then? Well, I was mildly surprised at how little argument or pushback there was. I expected it to get really complicated really quickly. And maybe it still will get complicated once we get into the nuts and bolts of how it would work. But so far, there's been a substantial fraction of Zcashers, like a number of voices, but definitely a minority, who are strongly opposed and think proof of work is better for a number of reasons. But the majority of Zcashers are happily in favor and don't have any objections. So that was news to me. I thought it would be a bigger controversy than it has been so far.
Yep. It seems like, there's some pushback from some miners who are fearing kind of loss of revenue.
Yeah.
But, and we'll talk a little bit about timeframes and things like that in just a bit. But gentlemen, so Boban, if I got your name correct, did you have a question for us?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Great. So yeah, I've been following Zcash from the early days, like from 2016, and I think it's pretty impressive what you guys have built and are building and improving. Just to comment a little bit on proof of stake. So yeah, I also fully support the switch to proof of stake. Obviously it's going to be quite a lot of work there, but my question is not about that. So it's about something else. And in fact, can I ask two questions? Is it okay?
Oh, please go ahead.
Yeah, sure. So first one is, what would be the reason that now it's been nearly 3 years after a sapling network upgrade, what's the reason that there are only nowadays, what, 3 mobile wallets and 0 hardware wallets and what, 1 exchange to support shielded, actually fully shielded transactions? So is it implementation complexity or whatever, SDKs are not ready, or and also, is it all going to matter now with unified addresses and shielded by default? Is it going to matter this support on the client side? That's the first question. And the second one is, what are the main threats to Zcash? So if I understand correctly, the killing feature of Zcash right now is privacy, obviously shielded transactions, and that's what makes it unique, right? But obviously Zcash is open source, and how is there a threat of some other, let's say, crypto that is more popular with bigger market cap that just copies the open source code for shielded transactions? Obviously, they don't have all the scientists that they. Well, it's not as straightforward. But would that be a threat to would that be a threat to Zcash? And I mean, I've seen Zuko commenting on some videos saying you cannot add privacy, but I wasn't sure how. So could you also, Zuko, could you explain that? What did you mean by you cannot add privacy? And yeah, what are the threats for Zcash? So these are the questions. Thanks.
Yeah, awesome questions. And thank you for being such a loyal supporter for so long. So Zuko, it looks like you want to maybe handle both those questions.
Well, at least let me give a shot and other people can jump in with more different answers. So the first one is, why so few implementations, 3 wallets, 0 hardware wallets, 1 exchange? My answers are 3 wallets is great. I love those wallets. I use them every day to buy coffee. 0 hardware wallets because hardware in crypto is super complicated. Somebody else can give more details, I guess. But the thing I wanted to raise my hand was about exchanges. So with Gemini, you can withdraw to your Z address. And with Coinbase, you can't but withdraw to a Z address, but you can withdraw to a T address. So with Gemini, you can withdraw to either your Z address or your T address. With Coinbase, you can only withdraw to your T address. But there's a thing that is widely misunderstood, which is that today with Coinbase, you get the world's best privacy because you withdraw to your T address on your wallet, and then you send from your T address to your Z address on your wallet. So now you've just withdrawn from Coinbase. This only takes like 2 minutes or so. Like, try it right now. If you have Coinbase and you install Zack on your phone, you can be done before I'm done talking. Yeah, so that's my main point, is that the fact that Coinbase only allows withdrawal to T addresses is like a 2-minute speed bump on your path to the world's best privacy, along with really widespread exchange support and widespread distribution all around the world. And the upcoming shielded by default rollout that we mentioned earlier, that is, in one sense, that's just eliminating that 2-minute speed bump. That's just making it so when you withdraw from Coinbase after that activates in like November or so, then you won't even have to take that second step of sending from your T address to your Z address, which is just saving you a click. Okay, so that was my main point. I forget what the other question was. Oh, the biggest threat. Oh, I totally have an opinion about that. You said it's hard to add privacy. Like I said in a speech recently, you can't add privacy. Why did I say that? What's the biggest threat to Zcash? And is it the fact that it's all open source and people could clone it? Empirically, that's not much of a threat. It's been cloned many times, and I kind of think it's sort of a mark of honor. Zcash is one of the most widely cloned things by both just, random small projects that just get cloned the code base and make a couple changes, but also by big, interesting projects that copied Sapling and used it because it was the state of the art at the time. But I take a very long-term view, and on like a 10-year time scale, I'm not worried about any of that. What I think is Zcash's advantage is not privacy, like you said. Isn't the main feature privacy? I don't think so. I think the main feature is that it's a continuously evolving thing, both like technologically and socially. The Zcash community supports changes and experiments, such as the possibility of switching to proof of stake. And it's self-funding because of the dev fund paid in Zack. So in the long run, the only thing that scares me is the idea that Zack might get, like the dev fund might get hollowed out or turned off or something like that. That's the only thing that could stop this, in my view.
Well, thanks, Zuko. Hey, Stephen, you had something you want to add?
Yeah, Zuko said most of everything I raised my hand for, I think. I was just going to add one, just good to hear from you, Boban. Appreciate the questions. And two, yeah, on the hardware wallet front, there's been some development underway for a while for Ledger, and there's also some development underway right now for Trezor. So we're very excited about the possibility of those hardware wallet support coming to market soon, hopefully.
Yeah, to add to that, like the ledger work, there's a bunch of work that's already been done. I think the proving time is still long, but a lot of folks would be willing to deal with that. The issue that we have is that we need a wallet to be able to support it. So like reach out to a wallet developer to be able to add the capability to provide the UI, because it's not right now, it's not on the roadmap Ledger Live directly. So we would need like Zack Wallet or one of the other wallets to be able to add support for Ledger, and then some support would be there. And then I think Trezor has plans to fully support shielded by default sometime next year, but they are actively working on that engineering right now.
And that work is funded by ZOMG presently, I believe, Josh.
Yep. So if you're not familiar with ZOMG is the Zcash Open Major Grants Fund. So if you're a software developer or a marketer or somebody that's doing something in the Zcash ecosystem, you can go to their website. What is their website? One of you guys know. I'll have to look it up. And you can apply for a grant.
It's zcashomg.org.
Yeah. Thank you. Yeah. Perfect. All right. So we have another, I think, request for the question.
I think those were really good questions. Thanks.
They were awesome questions. Yeah. So 1337 bytes. I am inviting you up on the stage. Do you have a question? This is connecting. I guess it takes a second. There you go. 1337, do you have a question?
Yeah, so I've just kind of recently joined the Zcash community, and I think one thing that I'm particularly interested in is kind of point of sales. And I think so far from my research, I haven't been able to find kind of a technical solution to that kind of allows you to do zero confirmation payments. And I'm wondering, I mean, I think there's ZK channels or Bolt Labs, but I think that's some time away. And I'm wondering if there's something that's kind of available today that allows for zero confirmation payments, or kind of eliminating the block time for places like, say, buying something in the shop.
Yeah, anybody have an answer for that question? I don't know that we have anything. I think there was something related. Zack Wallet was experimenting with zero confirmation payments. I think there were some thoughts on if that was a good idea or not. I know that we have we've got a coffee shop in Boulder, Colorado that supports payments in Zcash. That Zuko goes to.
I was about to say they give me my coffee before the first block at my coffee shop, and I've never like run out of the room and robbed them yet. But that's not a real answer to your question, but it's practical.
Yeah, Stephen, you got an answer?
And I mean, I've got a partial answer. I think.
All right, go for it, man.
So Zack Wallet was looking at a one confirmation configuration, but yeah, there was some kind of concern over whether that was, if that was a right move or not. Update on ZK channels from Bolt. Their current plans are to get a prototype running on the NU5 testnet when we launch, and then potentially look at something as early as NU6 for potential deployment of ZK channels on Zcash. Obviously, I don't speak for Bolt, but we do work with them quite closely. And there was also one of our community members, Chili Bob, that had a project one time. I believe he called it Zonky, which was kind of a proof of sale type application for Zcash. I think it's now called Zatsuma. But yeah, if you're interested, you might reach out to him and see the progress on that project.
Awesome. Nate, you got your hand up.
Well, I was going to ask Zuko to talk more about the coffee shop experience, because I recall Zack Wallet has had at least one update that specifically made that flow better. I think it was about payment notifications. Yeah. And I was curious how long it takes for the notification to appear. Like, are you out the door already, or is it as you're picking up your coffee? What does that look like?
No, it's faster than that. It takes like 2 seconds for Zack Wallet. Text me your Z address and I'll show you.
Steven, is your hand still up from the last time, or did you?
Oh, no, sorry.
All right, no worries.
I think,
all right.
I think just to add quickly, I think one idea I had was, I mean, I'm not sure if it's kind of practical, but it's effectively to create effectively kind of like equivalents of notes, like say kind of equivalents of like a $50 note in a Zcash wallet, and then kind of give a merchant the private key for that, so they can drain that as a kind of point of sale system. But I'm not sure whether it be something that's practical.
Sure, any ideas? All right.
I didn't understand the question.
Effectively, is to create paper wallets and allow merchants to drain the private key of a paper wallet, and then kind of give the change back through a refund address.
Yeah, that's what we call liberated payments, I think.
Ryketh, I don't know if I'm saying that correctly. We invited you up on stage. You have a question?
Hey, yeah, I just had a quick question. So I became interested in Zcash relatively recently, like within the last year or so. I was just curious about if there are any ways that we can see that proof of stake would differ from the way that Ethereum does that mechanism now, like given the way the coins work. Just curious about any differences that seem obvious at this point. I know the details of the implementation are yet to be hashed out if it were to happen, but just curious about that.
Nate, that's a really good question for you.
Yeah, so we, in my work so far, it is very early. So I'm still surveying like proof of stake protocols. So I can't say at this moment, but I can describe some of the high level features we would that I think would be important. So one of the biggest ones would be it's really easy for end users to delegate their Zack with standard wallets to any validator. So there's sort of permissionless entry of validators, and any user can easily participate. So that's like the big thing for me in my mind on a proof of stake desirable feature.
Hey, Nate, can you jump in? Like a question related to your blog. So you published the blog just last night, just yesterday. If you haven't read it yet, just go to the electriccoin.co into our blogs. But you blogged about the potential approaches and trade-offs for implementing it. Can you maybe summarize that transition plan and kind of open issues and next steps?
Yes. Well, actually, the blog doesn't talk too much about alternative approaches. It just describes, in very general terms, one approach that seems reasonable, which is to first transition to a hybrid proof of work, proof of stake system. And that is sort of like we see Ethereum going through that process now. So we should definitely watch and see how that goes before we, yeah, we don't want to, but so that approach seems the safest and most feasible. So then the next step in my mind is to really do the sort of product research and user research to reach out to like miners, for example, wallet developers. Like I just mentioned, I want a protocol where it's easy for anyone to delegate their Zack. So I want to talk to wallet developers to see how well we can make that work for different protocol designs. And again, the first goal would be, can we come up with a design to transition to a hybrid system that that gets us on our journey there safely, and lets us in learning about stake delegation, validation, without without sort of jumping ship away from proof of work right away. And so, yeah, it's very early. That process, like the first changes, are very. I think they will take at least 12 months or more. So I saw some people on Twitter responding as if this is happening tomorrow, but that's not at all how we roll. We try to make sure we have a clear direction, the community is fully behind it, and we're proceeding safely.
Cool. By the way, if you didn't know, Nate's the CTO at ElectricCoin Co. Zuko, what's up?
So somebody asked about the speed of receiving notifications of transactions in Zack Wallet. It said, like, it's really fast. Like Nate asked, is it when I'm still waiting for my coffee or what? And I'm saying it's like 2 seconds. And so I said, somebody send me your Z address so I can send you. No, nobody sent me your Z address yet. So somebody post your Z address so I can show you how fast it is. Thanks.
Do it. All right. So Black Star Media has a question. Go ahead.
Hello. Okay, so I have a quick question on. So I have a few questions about proof of stake to proof of work. One is, how likely is the transition? Is this something that is it in like the decisions phase? Are you is it like a debate? Like maybe to proof of work, maybe we go to proof of stake. So that's one. Two, have you thought of implementation similar to like Dash and also Firo, where they have proof of work, but they also have like a fast validation similar to proof of stake. Firo calls it chain locks. Have you thought of that? And the third question is, what about the potential for, I guess, those who have the largest amount of Zcash coins being able to have a lot of control over the network in terms of validation, maybe, making certain changes to the benefit of those who have the largest amount, whereas when it's decentralized with the mining, it's almost, even though large mining companies have control over the hash power, it's still more it's a lot more difficult to force a change on a network when it's decentralized with the proof of work. So those are my three questions. So one is like, how likely is the transition? Two, maybe that Dash Firo type of combination, and three, the concerns about the large shareholders being able to control the network.
Awesome. Those are great questions. By the way, it's really up to the community as to whether or not the Zcash ships. So Zuko kind of outlined a perspective, and Nate is looking at some options, and we're doing some R&D. But ultimately, that's what we need, this kind of conversation with the community, and it's up to you as to whether or not Zcash moves proof of stake and what that model looks like. But I see all kinds of hands popping up. Zuko's, I think, was first, and then I think Stephen, you were after. So
there's some good questions. I agree, those are good questions. Some of which I can't answer, but someone else probably can pretty well. I wanted to touch on the last one. Does proof of stake give holders of large amounts of coin more power to change the protocol than proof of work? I don't think so. A lot of people seem to say that, and I'm not sure why. I guess it's because some coins out there have both proof of stake and they have coin-based like governance and upgrades built in. Like Tezos has a built-in self-upgrade mechanism based on coins. But Zcash doesn't have anything like that, and so proof of stake by itself wouldn't change anything about how network upgrades get determined, which, like Josh says, is currently up to the community. And like I said earlier, I was somewhat pleasantly surprised to find out that majority of the community is currently solidly in favor of proof of stake, just based on how many people have spoken up in a couple of Twitter polls and stuff like that.
Zuko, there's another point that I think is relevant to this question of, we move to proof of stake, do the whales just then run the show? And I think that for protocols in which there is stake-weighted voting, whales do have an outsized voice. But for protocols that have had basically a greater distribution of issuance over time, like Zcash has through proof of work mining, a transition to proof of stake, I think, doesn't create that concentration of coins or in voting power if we were to evolve into having such a mechanism because of the way that the distribution of issuance happened over time.
Yeah,
that's a really, really important point, I think, DC. Stephen, you had
agree.
This one. Yeah, I was just going to add a couple of things. One was actually on the prior question about had we looked at Ethereum and how they're going with their kind of transition from proof of work to proof of stake. That's kind of one of the benefits we get from beginning to look at proof of stake now. And we've actually been watching Ethereum for some time as a chain going from proof of work to proof of stake. So a lot to learn there, a great process they've documented. So we can definitely pick up some things there on how best to do it. Regarding the second question that was just asked, like it essentially boils down to, finality, I believe, is kind of the heart of it. I'm not super familiar with the Dash protocol, but I believe they have the concept of, I think it's called master nodes, but master nodes are essentially the validators. You can have miners and validators who can then agree on like a chain depth. So you can, to a degree, achieve absolute finality in, kind of in a hybrid chain as well, which is finality improvements are one of the benefits of, I think, of going to proof of stake at a technical level. So just wanted to toss that in there. And then on the third question that was asking, Zuko and DC covered that quite well. The thing I would add is we look at it as really expanding the the economy around Zack. So every Zack holder, regardless of how large or small they are, can participate in this staking system through delegated proof of stake. So pretty excited about that.
Thanks, Stephen. Hey, Nate.
Yeah, I wanted to take this in a this is a bit of a tangent, but one thing we've made clear is we might advocate or propose something, and then it's up to the Zcash community about whether or not to adopt it. But I kind of wanted to peel back the curtain there and talk a little bit about what does that process look like, because I think it's evolved over time, and I think it needs to continue evolving and changing. So one big challenge there is, how do we know what the Zcash community prefers? So like in the most stark case, we could propose something and let's say it goes through the zip process. So all of the people showing up for the protocol development meetings seem to believe it's a good idea. But then a large user group shows up and they're like, we don't like this and we're going to split the chain, or we're not going to update our software. That's sort of like the fallback case. And I don't think that's actually too bad. One thing is the Zcash protocol has safeguards for both sides of a split like that. So it's less damaging than it has been for, say, Bitcoin Cash versus Bitcoin. So I kind of see that as like a base layer fallback to governance. But above that, we have more like explicit governance. We have these 3 dev fund recipients: ECC, Zcash Foundation, and Zcash OMG. And then there's this trademark sharing agreement between ECC and the Zcash Foundation. And then we have the zip process. And this is all running and operating, and we're collaborating that way. And I think it's working really well. But as we move forward, I'm always interested in ways we can improve that layer of governance. So I'm not providing an answer here. I'm just saying I hope to see that continue to evolve. So if people have concerns or counter proposals or anything like that, I hope they can show up to like the Zcash R&D Discord, or jump on the protocol development meetings. There's one called the Arborist Call, or show up on the forum and let's hash things out.
Yeah, so just a point of reference on those places. If you go to z.cash, if you want to find the Discord or the forum, there's links at the bottom of z.cash with some of that information. The Discord one is a little bit kind of hidden behind the name. It says community chat, but you can go down there and you can click on that. I think that's the general community chat, but you can get help and plug in there. And then again, the forum link is at the bottom there as well. So if you have a question, anybody else has a question, then let me know. I don't see any other hands raised. I see like everybody got demoted to speaker. Is that true? Or is that just on my UI?
Hello, I can talk.
Or I mean,
I also see everybody as speaker.
Okay.
Or several people as speakers. Yeah.
Okay.
I think it's the people that
had spoken. Yeah. It was some weird flashing thing on my UI, and it kind of all flashed back. But I see, like, I promoted WOB, WOBB. At least I thought I did. Here, let me try again. Are you up? If you can speak, go ahead and speak and ask the question. Otherwise, it says here. There we go. Should work now. And then I've got another. I see.
Hey, I think I'm here. Can everybody hear me?
Another. I'm going to promote.
I can hear you.
Okay, awesome. Hey, just wanted to say I love that this AMA is happening, and on Twitter Spaces. Zcash Foundation, if you're listening, I think the community would love to have one with you as well. I've been a long time follower and supporter of Zcash, so I just wanted to say I'm excited to see the direction that we're heading in with unified addresses, elimination of the trusted setup, and the roadmap that we have in terms of ZSAs and proof of stake. I do have 2 questions though. One of them was in terms of proof of stake. So the blog post that was done recently, it seemed like there was some ambiguity on potential supply cap challenges in terms of being able to maintain that. Can you elaborate on that? And then the second one was, I'm super interested in decentralized social media, and the Blue Sky news involving Jay Graber is definitely exciting, and it caught my eye. So I'm curious for anyone here if there are any ideas regarding collaboration on that project or ways that Zcash could benefit that project.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks for the support also. And it was awesome news to see that happen. And she's going to do an awesome job. So as it relates to the proof of stake question, Nate, it looks like you want to take that one.
Yeah, I actually have something to say for the second question too. So for the proof of stake, yes, I currently am like relatively confident that Zcash could transition to a proof of stake protocol without altering the issuance schedule or the supply cap. But I'm not sure a lot of people realize that, because I've seen commenters just associate proof of stake with variable issuance rate, and I don't see those as necessarily connected at all. So the only open issue in my mind is around the trade-offs. So if that is a constraint of the design for a proof of stake protocol, what implications does that have for like network security, the number of people staking and delegating, and things like that? So I think a good next step on the like R&D side is to dig into that question. Like if we maintain the issuance schedule and the supply cap, what impacts does that have on the design and the behavior of participants?
Right. Hey, well, thanks for joining. Regarding your interest in decentralized social, I think a lot of us here at ECC share that interest, and we're really excited to see Jay get the role at the helm of Blue Sky. Jay's been a long time supporter of Zcash. He was actually part of the early ECC team pre-launch, so we're really excited to see where she's headed and how that's all progressing. And we'll be definitely looking to see how Zcash and Blue Sky might be able to collaborate going forward.
Cool, Zuko.
Can I jump in there?
Yeah, just 1 second though. I just want to acknowledge, I think it's Neziah. We're trying to get you up on the stage. We see the request, but it's like Twitter's throwing these errors. So we're going to keep trying to get you up here, but my apologies. But Nate, go ahead.
Yeah, so it isn't, decentralized social isn't like a direct focus of ECC. Oh yeah, hi.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Well, I had a couple of my questions already answered, but I guess as we transition to hybrid proof of stake and proof of work, or just proof of stake solely, would this like have higher fees to send shielded transactions or whatever? I guess my question is, yeah, well, is it gonna create higher fees to send it?
So Nate, go ahead.
Yeah, I don't know the answer right off the bat for that, but I do know that we've been putting a lot of effort over a long time scale into scalability. And when, like, sometimes people think scalability means they sort of focus on like transaction throughput or whatever. But for me, one of the focuses is, can we make fees for individual transactions lower? Because if we can do that, hopefully that enables more human users and or more use cases. So I think regardless of the impact on fees that protocol transition might have, we still have this longer term scalability goal that is all about getting fees lower.
My answer is proof of stake is going to be more efficient, even though I'm not the expert in natives, and it's going to make fees lower and everything faster and more scalable. That's my guess.
Hey, it looks like Wob, I don't know if I'm saying that right, Wob Z or just Wob. Looks like you took Zuko up on the offer and sent him an address. Is that right?
Yeah, I did.
I got an address in Twitter DM. Okay, I'm pasting it in. Get your Zack wallet out. Are you ready for the test?
Yep, go ahead.
0.01
I have my stopwatch.
memo. Okay, I'm sending a secret encrypted memo that no one will ever know but you and me. Okay, ready? 3, 2, 1, confirm.
Okay.
Computing transaction, please wait. ETA 6 seconds. Okay, now it's generated. Now it's broadcast.
I've already received it. I got a smiley face.
Nice.
Super fast.
Sweet.
Yeah.
That was under 11 seconds
And like 6
on
of
my
it was
stopwatch.
generating the zero knowledge proof, I think, or a few seconds of it was generating zero knowledge proof.
Yeah, 0.01 sec.
Awesome.
Cool. Thanks for that.
NFT that transaction.
Right.
All right,
Nate, I think you were commenting about the potential, or your thoughts on Blue Sky and Jay joining that team.
Oh, yeah. I mean, we already mentioned Jay's like was a Zcasher, or probably is a Zcasher anyway, and we have a great relationship, so that's really exciting. But I wanted to point out there's also other social, like we see different projects spinning up that like to use Zcash for social stuff. So this has never been like a product priority for ECC, but we see that happening in multiple cases, like people building apps. So there's like Zack Page's board, and then there's these grant proposals. So it feels like there's a lot of interest there just already around the community. So given that, I think there's a lot of potential for some kind of interaction with Blue Sky. So I'm looking forward to learning more about it.
1337 Bytes told me he was making one. Hope that wasn't private.
What was that?
Oh, 1337 Bytes, who asked a question earlier. He's one of those people making a social thing on top of Zcash.
Oh, yeah. Okay, so he's requested back up. So let me add him back. All right. And then we're going to wrap up here pretty soon. But 1337, go ahead.
So I'd submitted a ZOMG proposal on zpublish, and I've been doing some work already that's already up on GitHub for that. So I've been developing something which is kind of similar, I guess I could say like a parallel effort to Blue Sky. And I've just opened up a Discord, so I'm kind of hopeful that they're kind of open to engaging on kind of incorporating. I mean, I'm kind of kind of hoping that they're open to kind of contributions from the community in that regards. And I think basically kind of what I've been trying to work on is like a sort of front end layer, kind of based on like a React.js kind of design system component library, which could kind of interoperate on top of different protocols like say Mastodon's ActivityPub and Blue Sky and so on. And then there would be kind of it'll be kind of like a modular system where you can choose, pick and choose whether you want to kind of add Zcash micro-tipping to it. And that's sort of something that can happen independently from Blue Sky, like it's something you could host on your own kind of server or website in a kind of similar way to Mastodon.
That's great. Thanks for giving that update, and thanks for doing that work. I mean, it's really super important that we have these tools. So let us know if we can be of help.
Yeah, in Leap Bytes, I would recommend reaching out to ZOMG. I think they just published a white paper recently talking about areas where the ecosystem is strong, areas where it's weak, and areas of opportunity. And I think what you just described would likely be of interest to them to fund. So it's ZOMG, zcashomg.org.
I have an open proposal on the forum for ZOMG applications for zpublish, and so anyone can feel free to kind of post or kind of join in on the forum discussion. And I have a GitHub repo for zpublish platform, and there's a discussions area. So if anyone kind of is interested in giving feedback, could be kind of open to it.
Great, thanks.
Terrific, thank you. I don't see any more requests to come up right now. We've been at about an hour, so let me know go ahead and DM me or something if you like if this format we were experimenting with this rather than doing kind of the formal video, and maybe we can do this more often. So thank you guys for joining us.
I liked it. I want to do it more often.
All right, let's do it. That sounds great. Thanks everybody. We look forward to seeing you soon.
Thanks for the good questions, y'all.
Thanks everyone.
Yep. Thank you.
Great questions.